a Frontier!
It is a Frontier.
James got the trophy truck package for all the shocks.
The Terra PRP Death Grip steering wheel.
We're safe to say next time you come up here, you can count this truck to be complete.
Hey guys, we're back. So, it is time to give you some updates on this thing.
It's a Frontier!
It is a Frontier. The final Frontier, guys. We got a lot of cool stuff to update you guys with. I'm super stoked. Morgan's been crushing it on this thing, just checking things off the list. Dylan has been over here. Thank you, Dylan, crushing it too. Also, lots of cool little announcements this episode. Got new gear at the store. Check that out. We got a new Terra steering wheel.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
What? You guys will see that. There's the gear right there. That's it.
Some of it.
Some of it.
For most of these episodes, and I'm sure it's a lot of the, well, where did it go and all that, but we're here now and we're going to kind of focus on the process of completing the thing and at least getting it to wiring. With that being said, there was like not a lot to do. Plumbing is kind of a thing, but really it's at this point, like what I told James is I'm going to just go through this thing front to rear. There's not like huge projects to take on, so I would feel comfortable having it gone through where I can just start here and I can just move through all the way to the back and kind of sign off on everything. We've been on the car, off the car, different guys working on the thing, so it's like with this now, I just want to sign off on everything, and I feel like that's a comfort zone for me, where I can trust everything is gone through. And that's what we've been doing. Now, on that note, Dylan Herrera is a super helpful and handsome guy.
He's a wonderful dude.
He's also came to help, and I've kind of just got him a list of some stuff he can help chip away at, and what he's going to do and has been doing is just starting in the rear and moving forward. And so really, I think I'm going to go over kind of what's going on back there. The rear is all blown apart, so it doesn't look like a complete truck that it is. It's just stuff is taken off. So we'll check that out.
Yeah, and this is the first time I've been able to see things on the truck, so I'm stoked to check all this out too. So as you guys can see, can we just hop into this? I know this is like
that area.
Can we just say this? Like,
gotta wait.
What is happening? All right, fine. Fine.
It's the ADHD.
Yeah, dude.
It's hitting
I'm just
hard. You want
at
that instant gratification.
Oh, here it is.
I'm telling myself I'm not going to cover this stuff, but there is a thing with like my whole life of just like completing something. We're so close. This truck has been a sacrifice, not just for me, but for James too. And it's like none of that is going to be worth all that sacrifice unless we finish strong, and that's what we're doing. So that's why I say, like, comfortably for me, get everything on that we need to, and then I'm just going to literally move through front to rear and just sign off. That's done, that's done, that's done. No, like, well, I got to do aluminum, so I might as well do aluminum here, and I'm going to do tin work here, and then here. No, I don't care if it's inefficient with my tools and everything that's out. I will just make enough of a mess to just get through this whole thing, because that's that sense of completion. And at this point, it's not so much of a project where I need to do it like any other way. I can just know it's done and I don't have to look back. And we're good. You know, put a coating on it, paint, powder, and move through.
Right. Hell yeah.
I am in a grind with this thing. We have everything for plumbing. We went through the whole car, figured out all the AC, all the hard line, fuel line, oil lines, brake lines, everything, figured out where it's going to go. Pre-ran it with all our routing, took notes on that, ordered all the fittings, ordered all the raw material, soft line, hard line, and we have everything to do that in-house, so we're in a good spot. And then we move into plumbing, and then wiring's already paid for, so we're ready to go. We're just gonna get it and wire it and run it. And I want to see this thing leave here running. That's it. That's what I have in my head. That's what the vision is, and that's what I feel. And every time I have those visions, they happen. So we're good to go.
Yes! Woo! Woo! So guys, I called Morgan a while ago, and I talked to Evan and Nelson and Arshia and Garrett, and we had been wanting to do this for some time, and I'm really stoked that we finally have it. Here it is, the Terra PRP Death Grip steering wheel.
I don't need it. I don't need it. I don't need it. I need it!
Let's see what it looks like in the truck. So these are a limited quantity, you guys. Ready to rip. What do you guys think? As you guys can see, this is all like stitched in right here. Super cool. We got the etching right here. This is laser, right, Morgan?
Yep.
It's like laser. This thing right here in the middle, this is an option. You guys can actually get this, or you guys can get a horn instead. You could add whatever tune you guys want in there, like the La Cucaracha, which is a famous one that I'd like to put in mine. And then Terra logo on the back, pretty clean. Dude, I'm super stoked on this wheel. Hope you guys check it out. It's available right now at PRP.com. And we got a cool package going on right now where you guys can pick up a tee with it too, special edition Death Grip. Let's go.
So James did a sick change order on us and got the trophy truck package for all the shocks. And what that means is instead of a 2.5 coilover and a 3-inch bypass, it's a 3-inch coilover and a 4.5.
Oh my Lord, look at that thing.
So big.
There's clearance issues. So right on your bypass tube here, you're already clearance. So what we need to do is not only get the shock away from the chassis, but also notch out part of the tube here and then kick the trailing arms out as well. So when the thing swings, it's still somewhat safe.
Right.
So Dylan's came through. He's already knocked off the strike pads. He's already knocked off the trailing arm pivots that were on the axle. So those will go on. Ooh, shiny.
There it is.
That's only going to help the thing too. You know, usually trucks like to be parallel. The trailing arms don't want to be super kicked out, but you know, parallel is the best. And at this point, I think we're going to get them almost perfect with just a little bit of kick out. So I think they were a little inboard, which is different.
Yeah.
So we're getting wins like that. It's just, again, like the bypass clearance is just gnarly.
Yeah.
And we get what we get, and if it rubs a bit on the panel or something, it rubs it, but at least it's not to the point where it's catastrophic and it's like going to bend the shock shaft or something. Another thing is the bump stops. So we upgraded bump stops to a 2.5 instead of a 2.
Yeah.
In the rear. So that's just a way gnarlier program, and that's necessary. Whoa, dude.
Take it easy.
Dang, look at that.
So
Massive.
That's what she said.
bump stop mount was already done. The panel was already notched in here. So all we need to do is just scrub the old can off, the 2-inch can, and then get this guy. So this is like fitted already.
Oh, nice.
And again, Dylan did all that. So he's, like I said, he's just gonna take, this is all like the gnarlier stuff to do. Demo work, fabrication, and it just helps us distribute the workload a little bit while I can kind of fine tune stuff. So
Excellent.
what the next step on like this progress back here looks like is finalizing these into the car. New strike pads, where you know that makes sense because there's going to be a little bit of an offset, a difference from the bottom of the old bump to this bump. So we need to address that on the axle tube, and I also want to put like a removable strike pad like we do on everything else, just so it's consistent with our stuff we do here. Another thing is the trailing arms. These are your old Kirby trailing arms. These were set up for 1/2 inch. Thank goodness a 12-point fits. We had to ream these things out because they were 1/2 inch and we went to 5/8.
Times have definitely changed since this truck was built.
Yeah.
Back then, dude, this is when my truck was linked like, geez, man, 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah, and those things worked great, and there's nothing wrong with them now. And like I don't
Yeah.
think we need, like James asked me when we started working on the back. He's like, oh, should we change out the trailing arms? And like I've assessed them enough, and they're solid, and they're already proven. So
Yeah.
if we don't have to take any more steps back, like let's just go. And then if this thing starts to crumble or fail, hopefully we see it, and that's that. But it doesn't, like, there's no red flags that make me feel like this is just gonna fail as a trailing arm. Limit strap tabs are already here. They are off of here. I noticed that the tabs on the chassis were maybe 16th, not optimal for limit strap tabs. So just wanted to, anything that's gonna fail, I just, like, again, it's just kind of a time to go through everything and make sure it's okay. Even though like we didn't build the chassis, it's still something where it's leaving here, and it's my responsibility to make sure things are good and safe. And if it's gonna go as high as the building is in the air, I just want to make sure things are, only stuff that would fail is gonna fail, and not stuff that we could have prevented from failing would fail. Drive shaft's already done. Upper links are already done. All the lines on the housing are done for our primary brakes, and then we did have Jmar get us another pair for the handbrake, so that's just a redundant system. Redundant meaning it's a standalone system, so the handbrake plumbing is just, that's all it is. It's not tapped into the whole brake system, and I like that method. over everything else. There's something that just doesn't settle right with me to have that plumbed into your regular braking system, and sometimes it kind of does weird stuff with the pedal feedback.
I can't stop!
Jamar, thank you guys so much. You guys are freaking amazing. Always crushing it. Believing in this truck. We're gonna make you guys proud.
So 6 pistons up front, 4 pistons in the back, and then another set of 4s.
Yep.
So it's just like you'd imagine it's going to be one caliper and then chased by another caliper. I think we'll do it like that unless that caliper is planted back there where we end up putting one on the bottom, and just for obvious reasons we don't want to do that, so we'll put it like on the front side or something.
Okay.
That's why like I want Dylan to get all the axles set up, and then we can just build everything out on the table and weld everything on the table. And then the housing's done. I think maybe we want to just crack it open and like look at it. I don't know if there's fluid in there, but I know like it's a sealed housing.
Yeah.
It's got Roy's gear in there, a big 10-inch. It's a Chrisman. It's an OG housing. But I think at this point, like it's been wheeled around for years, where it's just like, just look at it and make sure.
Pull it apart, yeah.
Yeah, like it just, again, you don't want to shit the bed. We've gone this long now where I don't think we want to have something like a diff fail.
Right.
We go out and it's 10 minutes in or something, and then things making noise and we ate a diff. Like, what are we doing? Just
Right.
have it all dialed. We're already here. Again, that's the whole moral of the story with this thing, is just like getting it dialed now. There's not like, well, we got to really do this. I think the only fabrication, like big fabrication,
is the clearance stuff with the shocks.
Mounting the winch.
Mounting the winch.
That's like the dreaded one.
Okay.
Because this is all provisions for the winch.
Okay.
And the winch goes on the side chassis back there. So.
And what kind of winch is that, Morgan?
It's a super winch.
It's a super winch. What's up, super winch guys? So Morgan and I, again, we talked about this before. We want to basically put one of those things in there for, when I'm out in the middle of nowhere, particularly Baja. Obviously, 2-wheel drive truck, Baja, silt, sand,
homies.
Everything. Just
And
stuff
the homies.
happens, man. Yeah, and the homies, helping friends out who are stuck.
Yeah, and also super winch, you guys do. I mean, they do awesome with helping people out. I know, like Anthony West. You guys have helped with him, and we have a super winch on Thomas's Exotic, so
Hell yeah.
it's a premium product.
So why is that a tough last fabrication check
Oh,
mark?
it's just one of the things. It requires a custom bracket.
Yeah.
Like your typical input for a winch mount would be like a receiver, like a trailer hitch style thing, and I can't get behind that, so it's just going to have to be something that picks up on like the mounting locations of the winch, and then it's just a bracket that has to be, standalone, where there's a pickup for it here, there's a pickup for it on the side of the car where it's going to live when it's not being used.
Yeah.
And then one in the rear. And then it's just something we attack and finish, and that's that. And
Got to figure it out.
I think we've had a lot of growth over the years of just that, like implementing that style of thinking, where instead of my stinking thinking where I think it's so hard to accomplish something, you just start doing it and you get into it and you research and you figure out what you need, and then it's done, and before you know it, you took all the steps and everything's accomplished. Just figuring out what you do and like pre-running a couple ideas, and then even trying one, tacking something together, seeing if it works, and then but just by doing that we figured out what does work.
Right.
Just by one trial and error of execution.
Clark's here.
Hi.
And other children.
Hi.
Scarlett,
The
Bruce,
team.
the other occupants of the truck, basically. The people who are going to fill in those seats. Right, guys?
Yeah.
I'm in danger.
Before we take it off, we did talk about the radiator ducting going in here, and originally it was talking about like putting a grill mesh in here, and I was like, I think we should leave a void.
Right.
I think we should do something where it's just like a bush goes in there, you pull it out, whatever, but it's something where it's like an open cavity, and then there's mesh protecting the radiator itself.
Yeah.
Because the bedsides, when the bedsides go on, they have a big old open hit like that too. And then this will also have venting too, so there's extraction from dust, and there's no parachuting going on. Parachuting meaning, if the car's up in the air, it's kind of using this as a sail.
And look at that race car. They just become like feathers.
I just wanted to show you guys the clearances in here. There's like a roll in the top panel of the ducting here, and it's all to fit, the crown of the hood here.
Bad power.
Look at this. Morgan built this. All of it.
That is insane.
Morgan, tell us about this spaceship right here.
Well, yeah. So I think it only makes sense with what we do and what I do with sheet metal to have a lot of that on the car. James already has like a kind of a tin package in the back The bedsides. Let's go to the bedsides really quick. We're just hitting a full ADHD episode.
Let's just all over the place. Ping pong, just yeah.
Squirrel!
So, Jason McNeil, owner of Fiberworks. Jason was the one who originally did the front one piece. He also did the bedsides. Needed to change the bedsides. We tried to do like a fix on them, and we cut open the top because at full compression articulation, they were more like a flat top. And the tire wanted to go higher than a flat top, just like a lot of trophy trucks. They want to go past the belt line. The belt line is the bottom of your window line on a car. That's what you'd call that. And when that thing's at full compression or articulation, it goes higher. The other thing is there's a significant kind of raised, like elevated contour that's on the front clip, and then the back was just a flat top. And it did work, but I had Mario come in and he sculpted something that is absolutely gorgeous for matching the rest of the car here.
Awesome.
That has been scanned. The file's been cleaned up before it even went to Jason's guys, so they didn't have to do anything. They just need to literally flip one side so there's a passenger and a driver, and then they're going to mill that out, and then they're going to make molds, stuff that is replaceable, and it's not just one-off. We're going to document that whole thing too.
We will be seeing you soon, amigos,
Okay.
at Fiberworks.
Tacos, yeah. The bedsides, when they come back, we're going to just tie in, like the bedsides kind of have a nice big like runoff that goes inboard of the cab, so it's already closing off some of like the rock splash area, and then I'm just going to tie one triangular panel into the back of the car, into the chassis, and it's going to be fully sealed. The rear tin work is all done and just off the car, so the last kind of bit here is this, and I want to finish this off and do it proper how I vision it. Now there's the fine line here of, well, you're just going to keep going, and where do you stop, and you're just going to keep making it nicer and this and that, and I'm not here with that. This is how this needs to be here. I don't want to keep adding stuff to the car. This was just always the intention, and it wouldn't make sense to have it dialed in the back and then have it just super exposed here. Like there's tin work, so some side enclosure panels on the chassis, and then there'll just be a top enclosure panel here.
Right.
So when you look at this, it'll just be all aluminum, and it'll just be sealed up, and that's great for a lot of mud, yeah, and it's great for elements as long as the ventilation's right and you have like heat extraction and you have airflow where it needs to be, then it's only helpful. And especially when you break the car down, it's like rock, debris, mud, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And obviously the win you get with that stuff is it just transforms vehicles. It cleans it up incredibly.
Yeah.
So the ducting, this is standalone ducting. It's pretty solid. There's obviously like one little standoff in here. And this is going to live on the car, so even when James doesn't have his one piece on the front, this thing can still run just like this, and that's why this top panel's here. The contour, this is the same exact contour as the hood, so you, in theory, don't need to have the top part here, but I just wanted to make it a standalone system, where if there's no glass on the whole truck, he's still got this nice big part of ducting, and it's functional. If this top piece wasn't here, the air would, in theory, just kind of blast over the top.
Right.
There is a AC condenser. We talked about mounting that. That's already mounted back behind there.
Right.
Last time, I think we talked about this stuff needing to be final welded. This is all final welded. There needed to be a slug machined for the third push bar mount here. That's all machined and in there. I put a 12 point in there just for style points. The truck's not going to have all 12 point, but where you can just get a couple little wins in. Yeah. And you might as well get them. What's up, dude? What do you got, Clark?
What's up, Clark?
I just wanted to come and see.
Yeah, you're welcome to hang out, man.
You want to sit in the truck?
Yeah.
Come sit on the driver's side.
How do you like it?
It's awesome.
Try the shifter, try the handbrake. Give those things a whirl. Oh yeah, there we go. Now we're talking. He's almost big enough to drive it.
Yeah.
Can you reach the pedal? Oh!
You're good,
yeah. Okay, so we left off on this thing. You guys caught me in the heat of this. I call this like a fluff and buff, and I've been working this part, so that's why this is kind of raw dog. Another portion here is it's modular, so the mesh can always kind of live here as the primary. The three sections up front, since they're connected to the bumper, if something catastrophic does happen with the bumper, I'd rather just replace these areas here than the whole thing. So that's how that goes. There's also like some aluminum backing. I noticed, again, this is one of these things. When I took the lower valence off, it's so thin here because it's separated from the clip that I could feel how flimsy it was, and it would crack. Like I could hear just a little bit. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just a matter of time. And if you just hit anything right here, we don't have a lot of hardware location, like mounting location. So I just put a strip back here, and those are countersunk, but they're deep rivets. So you'll just put like Bondo over that, and it'll be smooth again. You know, whether it gets wrapped or painted, but at least it gives like.
I actually just like this.
It just gives the rigidity where nothing's gonna move.
Yeah.
Especially if you just start hitting things.
Sammy, you are wrecking the car.
This all comes off. All these panels come out with the bumper on. So you're not going to be in a bind where it's like, dude, if I want to take the panel off, how do I got to take the bumper? No, just everything comes off by itself.
By the way, that's exactly how I sound whenever anything is going on. So I'm just like, yeah, hey, everybody.
Oh, geez, Rick. The only thing I wanted to do is, like, if you look up there, the fender washers, like there's 3 of those upper holes, and the fender washers are not centered to the slots where there's a barrier separating them. Okay. So there's like blue X's just really rough with Sharpie, where I want the fender washers aesthetically to be. Finalized all the welding through here. Like I said, the condenser is mounted and done on there.
So cool.
This.
Cool, you get it? Air condenser, cool, yeah.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
AC compressor, alternator, this whole system, like I think last time we talked about it, we had to re-engineer the accessory drive. It didn't work, and the old water pump, like whatever water pump was in here was like some old roached out thing, and it had modifications done to it. So like there was tube welded onto it. It didn't make sense to put that on here and then not be able to get that from an auto parts store, like if you're in Mexico or even if you're like in Glamis and you
just a quick fix.
Just swap the thing out. Like all this stuff should be, especially like, you know, this is pertaining to the build and the client, but like for James, like you should be able to go to an auto parts store or call them up and say, hey, I need part number, blah, blah, blah. Or hey, you're in the Suburban and you need an alternator. Yeah. You say,
we gotta finish that weekend.
Pop this thing and just take it out of the tow vehicle. Like you can do stuff like that if you plan accordingly. So that led to like needing to redo the whole belt system, the drive system, and then we go, well, let's add air conditioner. Okay, now we need an air compressor. So we have the AC compressor up here. This is all floating. This unbolts. This is all lined up now. Everything clears the throttle body. Or dialed. So that wasn't welded either, and it wasn't finalized, so that is all done now. There was just miscellaneous welding, like the brake reservoirs weren't welded, some of the gussets weren't welded. Okay. So that, like I said, just kind of combing through this, there's 2 items here that I don't have mounted. It's a pressure relief valve for the power steering, and then also the overflow for the coolant. Pressure relief valve for the steering, I just wanted you guys to see what that is. So that's kind of a big bulkhead. It literally is exactly what the title is. It's just a relief valve for pressure in there. If you have like a hard hit or something, it'll kind of squirt. I know, I'm broken. It'll squirt, or it'll release fluid to release the pressure. This is your air dryer. You can run 2 of these. This just, again, it's an air dryer for the air conditioning. It's like an evap thing. So those will be on the firewall. This guy's gonna live nestled in there. And then we're gonna just have like, the problem is with plumbing, when you have big like AN style fittings and hose, they are not like very malleable when it's very tight. Like it's hard to kind of get them to be, because they want to be square, like on the male part. The female wants to be like super square where you can thread it on nicely and seal it and seat it. So it's something to navigate. So those 2 items need to go in here. The water pipes, the inlet and the outlet for the radiator for the engine, those need to be configured and finalized because the new drive system and the new belt orientation might make that tricky. And the intake, same thing. Like remember we did the intake once. I didn't weld it. It was just tacked. But now that like just
things have changed.
Yeah, and it is what it is. It's not like we did that on purpose. It's you know, it's the same thing with running the intake manifold. That was a different intake manifold on there. So then your throttle body's in a different spot. So like those are crucial things that can't change when you're working with tolerances. I'm sure it already looks tight. So when you think about adding like an intake tube through here and a belt system, and then also like water lines, it just gets crazy. And then think about plumbing. Yeah. So it's a lot, and there's nothing wrong with that. But again, it's just like that. I need to just sign off. I don't want to keep going back on stuff. Like just finish that, finish this, finish that. Like just where it's done. And then when I get back there, I go, okay, cool. Well, all the rest is done. I don't know if there's much on the inside. We talked about your wheel, but really, like all that's changed is we're just gonna put an AC like in the back, and the AC thing for the Frontier, it's not gonna be traditional. A lot of like the Vintage Air and the Resto mods, you can kind of put them wherever you want. They have one called a trunk unit, A lot of people put those in their center console. As long as they're just not like mounted at an angle or vertical, they do need to be like a horizontal. If they're built for a horizontal, you have to have your AC like that. So we'll put it in back in behind like the rear seats, and then we'll still have the bottle up front and plumbing. There's going to be like kind of some exposed hardline in the car. It'll be safe, but just like for almost a design feature and also out of necessity, because this style tube chassis on this thing is really, there's no secondary floors. A lot of full-size trucks have like a bottom, plate or tube floor, and then they have like an intermittent area where plumbing, exhaust, all that stuff goes through. And this is like just a tiny cab, and it's like just skid
flat.
plate, tube, floor,
and
that's it. So you have to get winds in where you can. We have Safecraft on this thing as far as fire suppression, so we're gonna run 2 bottles, 6 nozzles. Usually they recommend 3 nozzles per bottle. We had 1 bottle originally. I'm gonna plant another one. I already talked to Pat. I want to plant another one in here just so we're running 6 nozzles on this thing, so it's super safe.
Hell yeah.
Look, come to this side. Let's check out the shocks on here.
A couple little surprises, but nothing you guys can't tackle, right?
Yeah. So change order on the front, same thing. 2.5. There was a 2.5 inch coilover and a 3-inch bypass.
Okay.
The stroke is still the same. It's a 12-inch stroke shock. We still kept the 2-inch bump stops just because they're buried. They're dug in. That just gonna leave them. The bypasses are custom order. These are a 4-inch King Kong. They call them King Kongs, and they make a 4.5 now. But when they made the King Kong, that was the sickest, biggest, gnarliest thing. So it's funny because the 4.5 should be called the King Kong, but it's just they didn't know they were gonna keep going. Custom tube layout. So meaning like top view of this thing. I sent Roy a diagram of the top cap and the front and rear, and then laid out where the tubes could be on this thing. We had a mock-up shock, which is just like a 4-inch can, and kind of cycled the car and cycled with a coilover in there too, just to figure out where we could get the tubes in. So that's what's going on here. Is this whole face, usually you'd see kind of open tubes, and this whole face is to clear the upper arm. Same with the coilover. There's kind of an absence of tubes in here. And you can also see that the reservoirs are off both of them. So that's something where we had provisions for the reservoirs here. And I just need to double check and make sure that's gonna work, because now they are bigger. Again, these guys are tacked on. Thank goodness that we have everything tacked like that, and I can just pop them off easy. The one thing that is also on the list, that's my recent list, is if this is a 12-inch shock, there's probably 7.5 inches of stroke right now showing. So you can just only imagine how much more travel the front's capable of having. But the rod end is diving into here, so I'm not going to clearance the shock, because again, like we try to, with everything, try to make it where the part doesn't have to be modified to be in the chassis. Same with like misalignment spacers and areas where you run an off-the-shelf item. It's better to build the stuff you have control over to fit those parts than to, we just got to machine it down, or we got to do this, and we got to, no, don't. I'd rather be able to replace it and not have to do that, because you'll end up having to do that multiple times. Yeah. So I am going to cut into the lower arm. I'll cut into there exactly where it needs to be, and then I'll just put plate right in there, weld it back together, and we'll be good to go. The coilover might need some too, because when the coil retainer gets on here, I got to see like what angle, when that arm drops out, everything is going to get steep and kind of dive. That constraint there is going to get tighter and tighter. The limiting factor here is when this upper droops out, like we already put aero tube in here, and this aero tube gets like an 1/8 inch from the actual rack, and that's where you're limited. So you just strap it accordingly to that. Okay. And I remember we had like the straps on here were super premature on limiting the down travel. And then we reconfigured it. That's why we cut the tube out that was here. We put the streamlined tube in there, specifically to clearance, just to get maximum down travel.
Yeah.
So something I noticed even today with the up travel, there's a rack bolt right there.
Just little things, huh?
Well, that's the thing, like just putting this stuff together. And see, it's already, this is limited, but it's limited because of that right there. So that's your tie rod.
So where do you go from there?
I think you run like a,
because that's
like
full bump, right? But
it is full bump, and it's not full lock, and it's still got more to go. And full lock just meaning the tire's turned all the way to one side, and there's still more to go on the ram. So what I'm gonna do is just get a 12 point for there, and I'm gonna like shave the 12 point down. Okay. And that's the best thing I can think to do. Right. Just just face the 12 point and take some of the height off of it. It's still a 12 point bolt. It's not seeing heat or anything.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, less grip for like a tool to undo it.
Right.
But it gets you just enough, you know, and even just because that's a normal hex bolt, so it might even want to divert from there. Now, if it's still something sketchy, then what I'd do is I'd just machine tie rods, and I'd put like a taper into that area, right, where it tapers down, and it's just clearance on both sides like that. And it just looks like a design cube, but it saves the day.
But it's purposeful.
That's the ticket to get wins, is like trying to make that stuff look like where it's not an afterthought.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm moving from this portion, I'm going to clearance the lowers, and then I'm going to start tinning the rest of this thing out. But with the tinning, there is the coolant reservoir like we talked about. There is the pressure relief valve for the steering, for the hydraulic steering. Those need to be mounted just because there is just packaging constraints, like especially with a reservoir overflow tank. You probably want that thing to kind of be emerged from the tin work, just kind of like the fill, the reservoir fill for the power steering. So I'll get those in there, but it's all going to be kind of as one. Check where the filter is. The filter had a pocket in here, right here. So I want to see where we're at with that. Try to draw it out if I can, like obviously get these guys turned.
Yeah.
And then figure out where my max constraint is for that. But you know, that all has to kind of be in place before I can get all the panels in, just because stuff has to poke through them. Air dryer for the air conditioning. There's just like 2-cylinder air dryers I'm going to mount on the firewall. Reservoirs need to get mounted at the same time to make sure all the stuff fits. It's just like we're at that point now where things are super tight. And I move through it. Now this portion is the most complex amount of stuff we have on the truck.
Right.
That's
Right.
it.
Making everything fit at bump and lock and
Packaging.
all the packaging.
Yeah.
And again, you guys, this is when I originally built this truck, I had meant for it to be on 37s. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of little things that we're changing up to make that work. Also, the shock package was not this shock package, so that's just something to keep in mind. I did not intend, nor did I ever dream of even having shocks like this. So those are the main reasons why things are changing so much. Also, didn't plan to have AC, but we made it happen. So the truck is getting better in a lot of ways, and I'm really stoked that we're addressing all these things right now. So
Yeah,
something to know.
I think the way to look at that is really, we've gone this far, and it's not like, well, just finish your truck, man. It's really like, if you're doing this and you want your ultimate dream truck, like what's going to be the stuff where you're like, dude, why didn't we just do that? We already spent this much time, and then why didn't we do that? Why didn't we put it on 40s?
Yeah.
Why didn't we put,
exactly?
I hate my shock fade.
Yeah.
Why didn't we put bigger shocks on? We could have just done it.
Yeah.
It was only going to take that much longer.
Yeah.
Why didn't we just do that? Or you're like, our Shia's in there tripping, sweating balls.
Yeah.
Why didn't we just put an AC in there? We could have done it. And then I say that, well, if you would have told me, we could have done that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
No, straight up. And again, I will say, going back to that trip to San Felipe with Roy and seeing the whoops down there, again, I will be brief. It is a joke. Whatever you guys think is whoops is a joke. Sorry, I'm not even trying to be a jerk.
Yeah, they're big.
But San Felipe, oh my God.
We're chilling. What are we doing? We're doing like 20 miles an hour right now. But just to know that trophy trucks are doing like 90 plus, even in the hundreds in here, it's just so wild.
Hats off to all the racers that do that, man. But it is one of the roughest courses, if not the roughest course on earth. After going through there and seeing what some of those pre-runners were doing and how they were able to like keep taking laps, this was the package. This was the setup that they had. At least, you know, shock and brakes and hubs. This is the setup that they had. So I had those things, and I wanted to just make sure that the truck would be able to hang out there and do that. Am I going to pre-run like that? Probably. Am I going to go as crazy as those guys? No. Shit, I don't have the money, dude. I'm just going to go have some fun. But I want to be able to hit those sections and not feel that shock fade. So
Yeah.
anyways,
To piggyback off that, there is like a recipe of big parts to run on vehicles, and it's not, you can get away with murder on a Ranger with a 64 kit and, you know, a 5.5 kit up front. And you can do crazy stuff, but you can't do it for a long time, and stuff will break. So that's the thing. Like, there's a reason why the parts are developed to be like that, and if you can swing it, it's always better. And that's the thing. Like, again, we're here now with this truck. Build it optimal where it can do this for a long time, because like the shock fade thing, you can have smaller shocks, but it's just going to be about the duration of how long can you go through big holes. How long can you do that repetitively? Can you do it for 10 minutes? Can you go through a whoop section for 10 minutes straight? Like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And even though, because usually when you're bombing, even in Glamis, you're in a whoop section for maybe 10 seconds.
Yeah, 15,
Think about
20
doing that for
seconds of
10
that.
minutes. And
20, 30 minutes. These guys in
Yeah,
dude,
I'm just
30
saying.
minutes.
40, dude. I'm telling you, watch our Baja episode we did with Evan and Roy and San Felipe on the Onyx episode. Dude, it's literally 70 miles of whoops. Think about that.
Yeah.
Think about that. It's insane. Obviously, again, probably not going to be doing that, but running for 10 minutes in whoops?
Sure.
Oh my God. Anyways, we could talk all day about this. I think we got to get the podcast going again, Morgan.
I was all for that.
Let's do it. Podcast, what do you guys think? Tell us.
I was all for that. We already have episodes stacked.
Dude,
I drove late at night on a weekday and sat
Dude,
down.
trust me, guys. This is something I want to make happen.
Yeah. All right, so finalize. You know, James and I are talking about it not being like a rear cell and being you call it a mid cell, but it's really just your cell behind the cab instead of over the rear axle.
Yeah, it's kind of just what made sense at the time, so I ran the Jeep Speed cell right behind the cab. I wanted to run a bigger cell, but that would have pushed my dual spares farther back, and I wanted to like give the truck the appearance of like a shorter kind of truck. It looked a little too long for my liking. It's kind of silly, but you know what? Maybe that's a step in the way future. For now, we're just gonna run that gas tank and with the tire setup how I want it, and maybe I'll be able to get that crazy custom fuel cell. But for now, I mean, I think I'm in a good place.
I don't think the balance is gonna be as upset as you think. Everybody's got just for having your weight way over the rear axle, and I understand that for sure. But based on this thing and like its proportions and like its balance already, like the engine is 24 inches into the cab, and then there's two 40s on the back of that thing. There'll be a winch on the back of that thing, and then the cell is right there. So there's not too much of a disconnect there with the weight being in the back, and I think it'll balance because the front's going to be a lot lighter. And that's what I was talking about with James. Like, it is a long wheelbase car. If you were comfortable with how it was before, then it's only going to be 10 times better.
Yeah.
So if the wheelbase never concerned you before, and you could just drive the piss out of it like it was, then
Yeah.
there's not going to be any issue with this. It's just going to be like a dream vehicle.
Really, really cool. We did this collab with this company called BX Built out of Las Vegas. They do some really awesome custom lights. So unfortunately, those guys are no longer around. I think they just closed shop, but hopefully that those guys could get back out there and build some really cool lights. I think they added a lot of uniqueness to the off-road community, and just made rides really, really cool. So shout out to the BX guys, and we hope to see some of your product in the future, maybe rebranded out there somehow in the future, but we're going to be strong to represent the OG BX Built.
Even if you guys aren't around, thank you so much for helping us out with these. They're fully custom for the Frontier, and we'll keep the legacy alive. James has not looked at these things yet.
That's what it looks like. Open up the box, right?
Check these guys out.
Terra, that's it. That's the customization. All right, see you guys later.
There we
No, just
go.
kidding.
Label.
So Morgan had an idea. He kind of actually worked it out with these guys, talked to them about what they were going to do. Could kind of see what the idea was. So we got the low-key skull right there.
And now when that lights up, that actually lights the skull up too, when it projects.
Freaking epic. Cannot wait to see what these things look like. I could hold one up if you guys want to see. There it is right there, guys.
Yeah, that'll do.
That'll do. Very good.
That'll do, donkey. That'll do.
Thank you guys so much for the freaking badass lights. You guys are amazing. Hopefully to see you guys out there again. Don't let this discourage you. Keep going. Let's see a new BXB built company out there. But until then, we will carry the torch with your legacy and freaking rip with these lights. At least until maybe I hit like a bush or something. All right, guys, I know this was kind of a longer episode than normal. Morgan, tell us, this is one of my favorite parts of the episode. You guys get to see what are the next steps, what's coming up next on the truck, some next big objectives. What the hell?
It's okay.
All
I
right.
accept you.
All right, let's get going. Morgan, tell us what's up.
Yeah, and I think that, at this point, I wasn't as thorough with this one because, again, it's just, I know what I need to do here. It's not so much of, like, big chunks of things. It's just finishing the truck. So the next thing is, like, to finish the truck to get it to wiring. We did cover all the rear stuff. Really, I guess you could kind of consolidate that into making room for the shock package. That's making room for the shock package in the rear. That's making room for it in the front. correcting the steering stuff. There's a little bit of bind there. Finishing the tin work, mounting all the accessories in the front, and just finalizing. That's it. Like I can see stuff that's tacked, just going through it with a fine tooth comb and just finishing all this stuff up. So I think what you can expect next time is definitely the whole entire rear assembled new strike pads, bump stops, the 2.5-inch bump stops in, the shocks clearance, at least the chassis part clearance for the shocks, everything assembled on its own weight, coilovers in the back, reservoirs mounted, all the tin back on, and then the front filter done, water pipes done, tin work done, AC dryers in, completely buttoned up. So that's like, I'm not far enough along where I think like the next update maybe would be the last update before we plumb it, and then the plumbing would be the update before wiring. So I think we're safe to say next time you come up here, you can count this truck to be complete. And complete meaning not like boom start, but complete to the point where it's ready for plumbing.
The next phase.
And then plumbing is something I want to go through with you guys and prep you for, because there's a lot of design to be had and functionality to be had in plumbing where it's, you can screw the pooch on some of that if you just start throwing lines and hard lines everywhere, and you can instead get wins off that stuff if you do it appropriately and tastefully. So I'd like to explain that stuff before we do it, and then when you come back, then, oh shoot, it's plumbed, and then we load this thing up, and then we go drop it off, and we get into what we're gonna do with the wiring, and then it's wired. So we're at that point, we're good.
And we're going to cover all those steps, guys. So
Every
it'll be
step.
cool. The wiring, all that stuff, even like Morgan mentioned earlier, me going to visit our boys at Fiberworks to pick up those other custom pieces, kind of see what they got going on over there too. So
Yep.
lots of exciting stuff going on, guys. Super stoked. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Is that it? Is this time?
I think so.
It's
Yeah, I
time.
think we're good.
Hope you guys picked up one of those steering wheels. Again, super limited. Check one of those out. New gear, new stuff coming up all the time, you guys. One of the big things we're doing this year right now is Speed Metal May 27th. It's our first annual thing. We've been trying to do it for a long time. It's going to be a multi-mile course. We're going to have drift cars. We're going to have freaking all kinds of levels of off-road there. It's going to be epic. We have the info on the site and on Instagram and anywhere else you guys can Google us. So that's it. Thank you, Morgan. Let's keep this going, dude. Let's keep going. We'll see you guys next time. Later.
Later.